Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Blue Frontier. James here, joined by Ryan and Shan, following Brentford 1, Everton 1. The Toffees bringing their unbeaten streak to 7 matches, which, shout out to Paddy Boylan, who brought this stat, longest unbeaten run since 2017 for Everton, which is mind-blowing in the best way possible. And the game started after a slow start built into a bit of a frantic finish at the G-Tech Community Stadium, and we will cover all of the action on this pod. Looking forward to doing so. Before we get into it, just a reminder that if you enjoy the show, please do us a favor, leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. Follow us on socials, share the episode, all that good stuff. Get the word out. We really appreciate it. And the links to all those things are in the description. And with that, hand it off for the summary quote of the day, chosen by none other than my friend and co-host, Shan Khan.
Yeah, appreciate it, James. And, really excited. We have a new member to the Discord in terms of match days. So wanted to shout him out, Major Frenchie. Good game all in all. Can't remember the last time Everton had a player score 5 in a row. And I think that Hoodoo got to Beto today. All in all, had a fantastic game apart from those misses. Totally agree. Miko, a bit of an unsung hero tonight because I barely remember an occasion where Mbumo, it was funny to kind of hear what he was referring to is the announcers just had quite a field day in trying to pronounce Brian Mbumo's name. Had space or a decent passage of play and a silky assist along with it. Thank you for the experience of the Discord during a live game. Glad it didn't disappoint, Major Frenchie. And with that, I will go into a quick score predictions. Had a few this week. Sunwave Cat, Cam Liz at 13, Tony Sampson, 1-1, nailed on. Bad Gumby, High Soccer Guy, BCG Rose. Wanted to give also a quick shout out to Sunwave Cat and Bad Gumby. They have joined the 3X Club, so great job, guys. And then BCG Rose, back-to-back score predictions correct. And with that, James, I'll hand it to you for lineups.
Yeah, just want to also shout out Major Frenchie and giving a ringing endorsement of the Discord on match days, which is a great place to be. If you can't be at the match or at a pub, come hang out with us, join the Discord. Great place to be. With that, lineups for the, I think, 4th or 5th consecutive week. Only one change for David Moyes in the merry-go-round of Doucouré and Alcaraz at that second striker number 10 position continues. This time it's because Doucouré decided that he wasn't really committed to Everton and instead was gallivanting off, visiting his wife in labor, I guess, or something, which, again, I mean, the Standards Brigade was out in full force decrying that decision. But congratulations to Doucouré and his newborn and his wife. Hope all went well. And he's got a newborn on the way, so we can look forward to his next goal, getting the baby celebration. But other than that, pretty standard fare, keeping the lineup the same, rightfully so. I mean, we're on an unbeaten streak, so why would you switch it up more than you have to?
Speaking of youngsters, I thought it was a good sign that Trimidi was on the bench, though. I mean, that was a good. I was a little surprised about that myself. Patterson being there as well. Speaking of birth, with that guy's head size, I mean that's its own thing. But in all seriousness, it was good to see both those guys on there. We need the depth, frankly. A little surprised to not see them come on, but it's a good sign that some people at least are getting healthy. And look, we've got a nice big break coming up as well here too. So you were hoping, even though our guys are on tired legs, that they would push through and maybe put a performance together.
Yeah, and Ryan, just, I want to give you a shout out. I truly appreciate the circumference conversation you have about, soccer players' heads. It really has made quite the difference in regards to analysis on this podcast. So.
Not to be overly scientific, Sean, but the bigger your head is, the easier time you should have in making contact with the said soccer ball. It's not really applicable in his place, unfortunately, because he's not great in the air, but you cannot say it's due to the small size of his unit. So
physics, folks. It's just physics.
It makes sense because both DeLitt and Maguire did score today, and they, it happens, right? So
right. I mean, Harry Maguire is like borderline has gravitational pull on that thing. It's like Sputnik. So like in his defense, it's like a battering ram. So I totally get that. Anyway, Sean, tell us about Brentford.
Yes. So Brentford, the injured bees to the honey hive, there are plenty of them. So going into
Can
injuries.
We talk about that for a second, though. I hate to interrupt, but is this an issue with Thomas Frank? Because I feel like isn't it unbelievable? They have just such a laundry list of guys constantly injured, or I think maybe they just have a couple guys that are just perpetually injured at this time, and they're kind of stuck with them. I don't know. It's pretty crazy, really.
Yeah, it is quite fascinating because there was a point in the season where I thought they had most of their guys available, and then you look at the injuries. I'll kind of, Matthias Jensen is out, which he usually is kind of healthy, so that's a new one. Sepp Vandenberg has been healthy most of the season. He's got a knee injury, so he's been out. That's part of the reason why Keane Lewis-Potter, and credit to Thomas Frank, putting him in a position, and he's done pretty well there. Rico Henry has had a long-term injury, so that's another one. Norgaard's had a concussion, so that's kind of a short-term one. But then Josh Da Silva has always seemed to be injured. Aaron Hickey, I think, is as injured as somebody can be for a team.
They're all good players, too. That's the thing.
I mean, they are. Aaron Hickey is very, very solid. And then Igor Thiago, who came back, decided that he's had enough of the cold weather, so he probably took another break. He's got a knee injury. So, yeah, I mean, going into those, I think the big ones for our standpoint were Norgaard and Jensen, because that put in the Vitaliano and Yarmolenko midfield, which I think is kind of a place where just not as strong of a pairing. They really miss Christian Norgaard today, in my opinion, and we'll get to that, of course. I will say this, selling Ivan Toney, and as we talked about the preview, has really kind of opened up some opportunities for a lot of their guys. Of course, Yohan Wissa and Brian Mbeumo, you can't say enough good things about them. But Kevin Schade is somebody that they bought a season or two ago, and he has really, I think, took the opportunity well of being kind of a full-time starter. Very pacey guy, can be really somebody that when he's taking on defenders, with his pace and his skill, he's done a really good job this year. But of course, Mikkel Damsgaard, as we talked about in the preview last week, very, very good player, has kind of played a few different positions for Brentford, but you can see as an attacking mid kind of what he's able to do. So yeah, I think for them, missing a lot of guys has hurt them. I want to give kind of a quick point on Nathan Collins. I think he's done a good job. He's been a bit of a Premier League journeyman, but I think he's done a good job of being a pretty steady center back to them. Ethan Pinnock, once again, I think is solid as they come. Had a pretty awful game today, and of course we'll kind of get into that. And then as spoken about, Keane Lewis-Potter filling in at left back, just given the Sepp Vandenberg injury, and I think he's another guy that just we talk about how much Jake O'Brien has really done well in the right back spot. It's just another manager and Frank doing a really good job of just kind of finding a spot for somebody that isn't, in the midfield is pretty packed. But I think the one guy that I really want to mention, and we'll talk about him a lot today, Mark Flecken. Horrible first season in the Premier League. I thought, just what are they doing when they bought him to replace David Raya? But he has really, really had a great second season in the Premier League. And of course, as we saw at Goodison last, in the return fixture, had an incredible save on Dominic Calvert-Lewin and did pretty good to have a 0-0 shutout there. So yeah, got to give a lot of credit to Mark Flecken because he's really rebounded.
And that gets us really to our key matchups. I mean, Flecken's just really on form right now, right? He's coming off back-to-back shutouts. He's been under his post-shot XG every match since January 1st. So he's clearly doing the business, no exceptions today. But I thought that was the first key matchup. You know you're going to probably get some chances against these guys, especially with the injuries. They do tend to not, play necessarily heavy possession, but they do get up and down the pitch. It was just a matter of could we finish? And then I think that's also a nice segue into the second key matchup as well.
Yeah, that's none other than, of course, the man leading our line, Beto, versus their center backs. Could they handle his physicality? And would he be able to get in behind as he's done in recent weeks? And feels silly saying this, obviously knowing how the match played out, because they could not handle his physicality, and he was able to get in behind them on many occasions. But, and you talked about it, Pinnock is a really good defender. He made these guys look silly on many occasions today and took great advantage of his great run of form against guys who have been playing well and just exploited them tremendously.
But James, you're not wrong. I mean, the key matchups they're key matchups on our segments for a reason. They often dictate the results of the match. And you look at that one, Flecken versus Everton. He was great today. We'll go through the opportunities through the timeline. Beto made it tough for them. The physicality was a problem with him and created chances, even if they didn't kind of go in the way they had been. I mean, but let's be honest. I mean, trying to expect Beto to keep this streak up, I mean, it's a little unrealistic. It's very difficult for me to think of Sade and not think of Sade and call him a smooth operator, something terrible like that. It's really hard, and I just did it, I guess.
Well, you did it, so no restraint.
No, but the one thing I like about him is I didn't realize he had the long throw, and we saw a lot of that today. But, I mean, he gets around in different areas of the pitch as well, too. He's a pretty versatile player. When they bought him, they paid big dollars for him. I thought, I don't think he's quite the player yet. You could see some of the potential. I think we're seeing some of that potential. But, yeah, I thought it was a key matchup with him and Jake because he was drifting out left a lot.
Yeah, and then going into the last one, Christopher Ayer versus Jake O'Brien. It's just, it was so funny to kind of see two
I know.
two giants playing right back. And to his credit, Ayer, I think he looked pretty decent. And of course, we'll get to it. I mean, he can
serve
kind of
a ball pretty well for a big guy.
He can, and he's kind of been a guy that's been, I would say, one of their perpetual injury guys. So it's nice to see him be healthy, because he's a solid player, So it's kind of another situation of where Brentford is similar to Everton, and where they kind of have a lot of the healthy guys they do have. They are kind of, Ben Mead is not seeing the pitch, right? So you have some guys that are healthy in spots where they can't play everyone.
It's amazing. He's only 26 years old. I thought he was a little bit older because he's been around for a while. I wonder if someone eventually takes a run at him and puts him back to center back, but he might be one of those guys that just the physicality of the Premier League is tough for him to stay healthy. I mean, it absolutely could be part of it, He's not necessarily a heavy guy, but I think he's a good operator at center back as well. I will say this, though, getting into the timeline, the one thing I would not have guessed key matchup-wise, and maybe we should know because it's obvious Thomas Frank likes to make little tweaks and little changes every match. I would not have guessed it was their pressure versus our back line so early. And I will say this, and I've said this in the past, I don't think our setup and our personnel, they're playing well. They're definitely playing well defensively. It's not the best lineup against pressure. I mean, in this instance, the free man in theory could be Charlie. He's good at receiving and maybe running with the ball, but you really don't want him dropping in between the lines. Decore's probably a little bit better at that, believe it or not. James Gardner doesn't release the ball that well. I mean, JB, these guys can pass, but it was problematic. I thought they were all over us early and pressing us very effectively.
Yeah, guys, it's just not the way that this team have played, and a lot of these guys have not played in a system where that's required of them. So it's asking a lot in certain cases, and they did have success with the pressure early. I mean, in the first minute, Keane Lewis-Potter rips a shot from like 40 yards out and forces Pickford into a dive, which was a little bit scary. And then a few minutes later, we get our first shot, Ghana getting his launch shot of the day off very early on in the match.
Loved every second of it.
Great to see. I'm glad, and he did not take another one, which was what I was very thankful for.
Hey, look, at least he's taking care of the home fans by not spraying one into Goodison, right? Who cares if it? I mean, he takes out some kid in the stands at Brentford, right? He doesn't care.
We don't care.
I think he was trying to kick the ball to Decore, just so you know.
You think so?
Yeah, I think he was just trying to kick. So was Garner, right? A few minutes later, I think he wanted to try to kick the ball to Decore just to know that we're thinking of him.
I think he was just jealous of Ghana. Say, come on, man, I can do that too. Yes, needless to say, that one did not go. It was pretty bad, though. I mean, he pretty much corkscrewed it. It was not pretty. But that was about the only positive moment I thought we really would see here. They just kept coming on. But we hung tight. And Sean, you mentioned it off the pod, but Brentford's big thing this year has been kind of this crazy, almost blitzkrieg off the kickoff. And Thomas Frank even talked about it in a couple different interviews. And I think their data analysts found some things that said, hey, there's some opportunities if you go like gangbusters really, really early. They have a ton of early goals this year. So we had to be prepared to deal with that. And we hung in there. I mean, but it was an onslaught.
Yeah, it got a little bit nervy at times. I mean, in the 9th minute, Shada goes on this ridiculous run where he splits Branthwaite and Ghana with an unbelievable dribble, and then Tark is kind of like has to pull out of a challenge because he's not getting anywhere near it. Ultimately, it just ends up in a corner. But into like the 14th, 15th minute, it's a ton of their pressure, and we could barely get out of our half. And then that sort of culminates with a cross from Shada again to the far post, and Wissa heads it basically right at Pickford from 3 yards out, but a dangerous area to be receiving being on the end of a cross. And in the opening 18 minutes, it's 3-2 in shots in favor of Brentford, but 60-40 possession basically. And they had out-dribbled us 5-0, so pretty much all Brentford. But then, almost directly in response to that, just a few minutes later, Everton start getting chances in rapid succession. On the 24th, we finally get our first meaningful break of the game, and it's Alcaraz receiving it and running with it. And this is the one where he has Jesper making the overlapping run, and he tries to lay it off to him and just puts it a bit in front of him, a bit wide, and that ends in kind of a cross to Beto. But promising, again, we finally weathered the early pressure and are starting to get forward and creating things on the other end.
Yeah, I think this was kind of a product of, to your point, James, we absorbed the pressure, and I think they had to sit back a little bit just because they were like gangbusters. And I think for them, they probably wanted to see what we were about, right? And so, of course, good for Charlie. Unfortunately, of course, and I think that will come with game time, right, in terms of just getting used to the players. And, of course, just kind of another moment where Jesper is in a little bit of a tough spot. I think does as best as he can. And then, yeah, just kind of a few of the other things, good move to see Mykolenko get free down the left. The cross, it's over Beto. Lindstrom, he loops that cross in. Beto goes for the half bike. It's well over. Hey, he did it fine to get on that chance. And then, of course, Lindstrom and Jake, good give and go. Unfortunately, no shot. So, but yeah, to your point, I think it was just nice to see us, take some of that pressure and continue to go forward.
And in that sequence of play, it's like most of them don't end in shots, but good movements forward, and you see both O'Brien and Mykolenko involved getting up.
I think we figured it out a little bit, I mean, Charlie really, as the free guy, was dropping deeper, and I think that's where we're really attacking off the counter with him running with it is a good thing. You know what I mean? That's where he's at his best. He's going to lose it a couple times, sometimes taking chances, but when he's running with the ball at full speed, he can find people, he can shoot. That's where he's at his best, and I think he was a trigger guy and kind of started and changed some of the momentum. What about this play in the 37th minute? I can only think of one expression when I see this. No, I mean, this is kind of an odd play. Jack switches it all the way across the pitch, well past the far post. Jack started growing into the game at this point, too. I felt like he was a little bit lost at first and had a much better second half as well. Jake header across to goal in front of Beto. Beto, it looks like he's going to score here. I mean, it was just perfectly timed, the run and everything. Gets behind. I guess Pinnock gets a piece of this, do we think? It was hard to say. I think Beto was kind of confused. He was like, how did I not make contact with this? And it was definitely a scary moment for them.
This, to me, was Pinnock's moment of the match, because I think he actually does pretty well of disrupting Beto. He kind of gets like a little bit of contact you could see on the ball, and I think for Beto, like, I just don't think he could really do much in that moment, because I think Pinnock does a good job of body positioning, and it is just kind of a bang play. But this was kind of almost the prelude.
He made up for it soon.
The prelude to what was about to come.
Yeah, he's in this next play here. I mean, Jack does pretty well here. It doesn't look like it's going to be like a massive chance or massive play. But yeah, this is where Pinnock did not shower himself in glory on this one.
Yeah, of course, he completely slips and plays Beto in. Beto, well, there's a lengthy debate of if Beto goes down and then he doesn't bounce right back up, do you get the call there? I don't think it would have withstood a VAR review, honestly, myself. But good for Beto for playing through the contact. He's in one-on-one. Flecken closes down well. Beto tries to dribble it past to his left. Flecken reads it and just kind of scoops it up. And you think, how many more of those chances are we going to get at that moment?
See, to me, it's not has to score. It's has to do Beto. Like that is just like full disclosure, because and out of all the chances, and we'll get to it, this is the one I'm the most upset about, simply because it almost like reminds me of like a penalty shot in hockey. Like, he gets past the first guy, he's got acres of space, acres of time, there's like no one near him, and like, I understand, like, he trips, and so he's trying to kind of get his equilibrium back, but like, I don't know why he's trying to beat the keeper at that point, right? It's just, Flecken's already in a bad position because he came out, right, not knowing that, Ethan Pinnock would slip, which, by the way, is like my dream, in the sense of, I always like wonder when I see these plays in the Premier League, I'm like, why doesn't it happen for us? And the one time it does, of course, we do that. So yeah, to me, it's just, this is the one I'm the most upset about with him, because I just think he gets this all wrong.
I mean, I'm okay with him trying to dribble around the keeper. I just think he went the wrong way on it. And, it's hard to say. I mean, the keepers are pretty good, but when a guy's all the way out, you think maybe chip him or do something. It's hard. He was so in tight on him. It wasn't one where he could just push it right by him. He almost tried to fake it and drag it. But you make a good point about Flecken being out the whole time. Flecken had 61 touches today, by the way, on the ball. He's constantly out of his box and on the ball. Think about that. I mean, the most touches in the match for anyone was like 72, 71. So there is something to be said for this. But James, your ironic hint of foreshadowing there about, would we have another chance like this? Well, we didn't have to wait too long, did we?
Yeah, it's just 3 minutes later, and it's Beto played in again, this time from Charlie. And actually, it's Beto starting the play, so you got to give him credit for starting the play and being on the end of it. He wins a long ball, pops it up. Charlie gets on the second ball and plays it in behind. Again, Beto making a great run. This time, Flecken closes it down, makes himself really big. It's a decent shot here from Beto, but Flecken manages to get just enough contact to send it wide out for a corner. And this was the bigger chance in that he actually gets a good shot away, and the XG on this is 0.24, which in itself is a big number. The post shot XG, 0.72. So that just kind of illustrates this is Flecken playing tremendously well, 2 big plays in a short space of time.
That's a really good save. I mean, I think I when I saw that kind of, and I looked at the replays a few times after the fact, I think because it almost reminded me of the Palace chance, right, where he kind of has that small window and, of course, this deflection from Munoz. But it's just because you keep in mind, he gets it past the keeper and it's bouncing. So, a few meters to the left, it's in. Just once again, really, have to compliment Flecken. I think, it's a good save, great shot. Or I would say not great shot, but good shot from Beto. Definitely not an egregious miss by any means.
XG 0.24, post shot XG 0.72. Yeah, I mean, it's the same way he scored basically against Allison. It's the same way he scored in Leicester, really, in many ways. I mean, not from a goalie perspective, but same type of thing. It's weird, though, isn't it? I mean, he almost squares up on the ball, and you think he can't go outside and wide, and he manages to do it. So almost every keeper, it's hard to help yourself. You're going to lean to the one side. And yeah, I mean, it went under his arm. It got through him. Pretty unlucky, to be perfectly honest. Or he has to score. I mean, it's one or the other, right?
And we're so close. We're so used to seeing him in this run being so clinical. So to see him get those 2 great chances back to back and not finish either of them, not through really any necessarily fault of his own on the second one, but still, it's like, what's happening? Will we get another good chance like
I always think of the MLS shootouts. Remember the old school MLS shootouts and how few times they scored. Now, granted, that's because they're on the shot clock, but that's how it's got to be. Like, it's hard to score in those situations. And then right off the ensuing corner, Charlie, to his credit, has a lot of courage when he attacks the ball in the air. This was, I was a little frightened for the guy. I mean, he rammed heads, was on the ground like he was just laying down like he was completely out and dead. I guess he was really cut, and that was the bigger issue. It didn't look like, Jack came over there so he could play translator, if you noticed, by the way.
It's my head. My head is hurt.
Cabeza, dolor me cabeza, sangre. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where you're worried about him, and it turns out he's perfectly fine. It certainly didn't seem to affect him. He still took all the long shots that you could ever want, as you would expect from him. But it was a nervous moment here. And I mean, we'd had to start feeling good about it at this point, about the match. I mean, yes, you want to score these chances. And James, to your point, yeah, you're not going to get these all the time, but it felt like we were really being more successful off the counterattack. We were dealing with their pressure. We were breaking through things, and Brentford were a little bit taken aback, I think, by the effectiveness we had. And they were really struggling with the physicality of Beto. And I think that's a little bit why it was disappointing, kind of the surge that Brentford went on. I mean, it's a little bit of a surge here at the end of the half that ended up putting them up 1-0.
Yeah, and it's really just kind of one continuous play in that Beto is in a tough spot on the sideline trying to win a ball, and he gives it away on the pass. And then Brentford break forward. Wissa gets it at the top of the box and takes a good shot. Pick forced into a diving parry out for a throw here, which is actually a really good parry there to not send it out for a corner, get it over the sideline. But nobody really there to break up Brentford's play as they break forward.
Yeah, and I just hate how the midfield shape was a couple times in these, but that's going to take time. Charlie was a little lost at times. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, he's not Decore, so he's at this point we were rolling pretty good. So I understand him cheating up a little bit and really wanting to force the attack. That's fine. On the long throw, it's tough. And we talked about this a little off the air, but and as someone who's played in the back before, long throws are a little tricky sometimes because the angle that it's coming, it's not like a kick where it's coming from the ground and you can gauge it a lot easier. It's coming from a higher position, and the spin's sometimes a little strange. I mean, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of timing to get it right, and it's hard to get that first one in, and there are a ton of people in the box, and they have some big bodies in there, and I think it's disappointing, though, on a couple different levels how this thing got through and went in, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think of course, you look at that long throw, it kind of gets over Beto and the other guys it gets that bounce, hits the crossbar, which, of course, anytime that happens, you're going to have just franticness in the box. I don't know why Pickford dived, and we'll get to that in a second. But then, of course, Jake is kind of frozen, just given everything that's happening. And similar to Decore, just attacking the ball, Wissa does the same thing and just heads it it's as easy of a goal as he's probably going to have all season. And it's 1-0 Brentford, and we're definitely annoyed, especially going into the halftime.
Yeah, I don't. Can Jake do anything? Should he have maybe moved his feet and went with the header? I think he tried to kick at the ball because he's probably thinking, I can't keep it out otherwise. Maybe he has to be a little bit aware that someone's come flying in behind him. I don't know. But what about Pickford? Why is Pickford falling to the ground here? Is this, I mean, I know he's not the tallest, and I don't want to make jokes about the T-Rex arms, but he's not that short. And I don't think, he doesn't need to leap and fly in the air to prevent it from getting above his arms on a ball that hit the crossbar that wasn't coming in any heat at all. So I don't know. I thought someone knocked him over because I was like, what is he doing?
It's such a tough play because when it bounces up off the crossbar and it's still in play and your keeper's taken himself out of the play entirely, the offense is at such a huge advantage there because
they're all turned around.
Exactly. And the defenders are like, you have to just win the header, but they're all crashing and there's just very little chance of getting anything clear there. So Wissa does a good job of putting his body on the line, and I don't really know, Pickford would have been the one it comes back up off the crossbar. He's got to jump up and grab that, but he's nowhere to be found.
If he's on his feet, does he get it?
Yeah, I think so for sure. Or he draws a foul with Wissa trying to go into him.
Yeah, he's got to. That's the thing. It's like playing all zonal marking on corners, man. You're not going to jump up and win the header when guys have momentum. That's why you need the blockers there. It's the same situation. But it happens. It was disappointing. Maybe you could argue that the first half was a little more even, but the numbers don't, I don't know. The numbers are distorted a little bit because of the big chances there at the end. But if you look just even from an XG breakdown standpoint, they were 0.09 XG from open play. We were 0.37. You could argue that maybe our individual chances were bigger than that. And I think they probably were. And so I don't know. They had more sustained opportunities and pressure. They had 15 touches to 9 in the box against us. And look, we had 19 clearances to their 5. So I think on the run of play, XG doesn't always tell the story. I think they probably were consistently the more dominant team in the first half, but if it doesn't translate into chances, it doesn't necessarily matter. I don't know. I think it was more just disappointing to concede the way we did. Yeah, fair?
Yeah, for sure. I think we definitely had trouble kind of getting up to the tempo of the game. After that first kind of onslaught from Brentford, you could tell we kind of took the air out of the ball a little bit, tried to control it a little bit more, and then eventually we're able to get in behind them with some success. But yeah, as you say, they didn't create any real great chances. Probably, I'd say the overwhelming majority of their XG is just the Mbuemo header off the crossbar and then the Wissa follow-up. So to be down 1-0 after 2 one-on-ones with the keeper, some great breaks, some great movement, does feel a little bit unfortunate.
And then the question is, I think, how do we come out second half? How do we respond? Because this has got to be a tired team. Again, we have a short week here, playing midweek, small team, not many subs. How would we respond? And we came pretty darn close to equalizing almost right off the bat.
Yeah, this was a really interesting moment. Jake does a good job of winning an early corner. Jack's delivery is low. Lindstrom almost is like, his like basketball nuance of just boxing out Flecken, and it's almost over the line. But yeah, it's off the far post and cleared. But I think it's a good moment from us to kind of just show that, hey, we're not letting up, and I think we're going to try to come after Brentford in the second half.
Then can we talk about the big man versus skinny man battle here a couple minutes later? I don't know what he's thinking. I just want to make like a Sweetest Taboo reference right now. I can't help it, guys. I apologize. But the lesson learned here is don't try and body a 6'6" former boxer, big guy, stud when you weigh 150 pounds, even if you've got some height, folks, because Jake just freaking takes Kevro out.
Yeah, crushes him, and then Jake accidentally in the follow-up catches him in the calf with his studs, and shot is going down, rolling around on the ground, but that's what you get. You don't try to out-physical this guy because he
isn't off the tracks when the train is coming through or something.
Something like that. Yeah, pretty much exactly right. And we get, again, Jake wins the corner there, does really well. Surprising there was no real foul there, but Jack has a corner that goes out of bounds, so kind of anticlimactic move.
Was there a foul? That was a terrible corner, of course. I think it was a foul, so hopefully it won't look so bad on highlights. But either way, yeah, that was a wasted chance. Whatsoever. So I'll tell you what, man, about 10 minutes later, the match is kind of going back and forth at this point. I'm not very optimistic that we're going to somehow muster up the energy to do anything here, but had a moment here.
We looked exhausted at this point. I think the pace of play slowed down dramatically, and it was kind of like, are we just going to sleepwalk our way to a 1-0 loss?
Again, I blame Decore's significant other's pregnancy. Really, totally inconvenient. You can't plan a little better than that.
Are we sure that Decore is just not filming another podcast?
It's positive.
Okay.
All right. It's possible.
Just as a side note. All right.
Probably be found out. But
it's a thought. Yeah, that might be disclosed somehow. That's something that our press corps has been compromised by the powers that be at this point. So maybe that's why it's not coming out. Sorry, I'm not going to devolve into politics in this one. That's a bad move, but that's what happens when you get someone outside of DC. I love kind of the combo play here a little bit. Jack Alcaraz, Mikolenko. But what I love is this, you see the moments that Charlie can produce with that right foot. I mean, he turns the corner here, clean touch inside from the half space. I mean, this ball does not miss by much, and it is absolutely smoked. I'd love to see the miles per hour, not kilometers per hour, while we were being the American version of the Todd test here. This is absolutely smoked. It did not miss by much, though. I mean, this is the type of thing that, and I feel like he was starting to feel it a little bit in this match.
I would not have wanted to bend that water bottle, Ryan, to your point. I mean, that water bottle flew. I mean, just, if Leicester a few seasons ago, if they really wanted to get rid of Pickford's water bottle, that's all they should have done, right? I mean, yeah. It's just
I thought that thing was
going
to disintegrate on contact. He hit it so hard. I mean,
what did it do to him? Like, seriously. I don't know. It just seemed, although he was having all sorts of fun with random pieces of equipment, including other soccer balls. We'll get into that one in a second. I love this break, too, a couple minutes later, where Charlie's just flying with the ball, plays it wide to Jack. Defending is really good here, I think. The timing is good. Jack gets a decent crack at it, gets blocked, but you start feeling a little bit. You're thinking, wow, we may be tired, but this match is so wide open. And then you're looking to the bench thinking, who on earth could we bring on? I think that was part of the problem. And then there's this very strange moment in the 69th minute where Vissa scores. And, some of these plays, sometimes when the keeper comes out, you know what I mean? You think, you don't even realize he's off, but he is by a mile. I mean, it's just kind of a strange play. It was a beautiful play built up by Brentford, but I'm sorry, it doesn't count, folks.
Yeah, it's quite an incredible pass, actually, from Damsgaard. He did kind of a similar thing to Leicester when I was watching that game, to Wissa. And yeah, it's just credit to the AR too, by the way, for like noticing that real time, because it's like, to your point, Ryan, it's not very common where Pickford's essentially kind of the second guy. And so, yeah, it's I think for a lot of us, we were confused because it's like, there's no way that's like offside. But yeah, when you kind of look back and Pickford's ahead of the last guy, yeah. So good on Pickford for finally being in the right position there. And yeah, we kind of get away with one.
Yeah, and then look, we make a sub at this point, trying to. It's kind of a ridiculous sub if you look at it. Like I was thinking at this moment, and yes, I'll say it because I said it on the Discord where I said I'd sub out Jake, not because I think Jake is bad, but because we needed a goal. And I looked at the bench and realized we actually have a couple right backs in today. I didn't know if he was going to look to Tremidi. I think ideally he just got back, but there weren't many options, and sure enough, that was. I then went the rest of the Discord a couple times saying that they should sub off other people just to hope that might jinx the player into a moment. Well, first of all, what do we think about the sub? And then we'll get to the goal in a moment because it's a really impressive cross and header.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think at this point, I thought a lot of the guys look dead on their feet. So he brings on Young and Tim for Jesper and Ghana. I mean, Ghana we haven't even mentioned him yet today, but he was covering a whole lot of ground as he usually does. He was absolutely everywhere.
Got to fix the midfield, by the way. I mean, he's being asked to do way too much.
Yeah, and Garner, I just saw some things today from Garner that I didn't love. So I probably would have taken Garner off instead of Ghana, but also, he's 35. He's played a lot of minutes lately. It wouldn't hurt to get him a little bit of rest before the long break. I think the subs are just kind of forced in some respect. You don't really have a lot of optionality, to your point, Ryan. But as you said, you're talking about subbing out Jake, and then 1 minute later, it comes the goal from Jake O'Brien. It's the cross from Mikolenko, who has had a number of crosses on the day. And as Jake on the far post, he does makes a great move to slip the defender, get in front of him, and then a diving header. He's going to travel a long way from 6'6" to get his head all the way to the level of this ball and hit it across the face of goal past Flecken into the back of the net.
This is, to me, like, Jake does such a good job. It's almost like you look at football, like a defensive end making that move, right, to get past the defender. And he, like, this defender, I can't remember who exactly in the moment, just got absolutely roasted. And credit to Jake. He loves to score when he's off sides, but he was fully on in this moment and just truly superhuman Flecken today could not do anything about it. So I think that's a credit to Jake. Absolutely beautiful header, and I think for us that probably put Brentford on their their heels, given because to your point, we were just kind of a little bit lifeless, and yeah, it's just an excellent goal, and really happy for Miko. I don't think you would have seen that under Deitch, a wing back to a wing back to score a goal. So credit to Jake.
Yeah, I have a hunch that probably won't be our future wingback combo anytime soon. And then ironically, Brentford's next sub did the complete opposite. They're like, yeah, I'm not going to trust my right back to do that. So subs off Christoph Ayer for Michael Kyoto brings him on naturally to try and go for it, I think, at this point. And if I'm Brentford, I probably would too. I mean, you're playing at home. Everton's thin. They've got to be a little bit tired. This is your chance, but it really didn't turn out that way for them.
One quick thing on Coyote, just watched him. He just got there from Fiorentina on loan. That guy has a cannon for a long throw, an absolute cannon. I'm fortunate that we didn't see that much today. But yeah, to your point, Brian, in the 85th minute, great break from Jack. Away, a really good move. I think he does such a good job in space to cut this inside and lay it off to Charlie. Of course, Charlie, he has really trigger happy today. Of course, the shot's right at Flecken outside the 18. Interesting.
He slipped, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I like this play. I mean, I thought the timing was... Jack was balling at this point. Like, he was really... I couldn't believe how energetic he was. It's like he was saving all his energy up for later, or his, like, boost came back, like playing the video game or something. I'll tell you what, if Charlie doesn't slip here, man, I like his chances here as well. It's a little wet for sure, the surface. There were some other people slipping, but he can't blame Beto for running him over on this one. But I think what was really surprising is that we had another massive chance again 2 minutes later, and once again we're hoping the man of the hour, Beto, can the third chance make it a charm?
And this is maybe the most impressive buildup of all of them in terms of his involvement. And just to be said, up to this point, after the equalizer goes in, this game just devolves into chaos. Like, it is wide open, up and down. But this is Beto. Firstly, he wins a 50-50 ball, knocks it down to Charlie, who's probably 5 or 10 yards in front of him. Fantastic touch, and he had some really good headers knocked down to his teammates today. He knocks it beyond him to Charlie, and then just starts hoofing it and gets ahead of Charlie in about 2 seconds.
Like, flying.
All-out sprint. Can't believe he still has this energy after the amount of runs he's had to make and the work he's done. Runs beyond him. Charlie plays him in, and again, it's one-on-one for the third time. And this is the best save of the lot from Flecken. I mean, unbelievable extension of the arm to get his hand out. I mean, it's a tremendous shot from Beto here. And the other one in the first half was good, but this one was mind-boggling. I mean, on the first watch, I'm like, Beto, no. And then on the replay, I'm like, I can't believe Flecken did that. That is an unbelievable save. You won't see many better this season, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, James, it's just like it kind of progressively got better for Beto as well as Flecken in terms of just the impressiveness, right? Like, how he takes the second chance, it's a good shot, but this is a great shot, and this is an even better save. And my favorite part of this, unfortunately, is Charlie being absolutely livid. He kicks a soccer ball that's on the sideline, and then he punts a ball. I think he was trying to either punt it to Jesus or South America, one of the two. But yeah, it's just, I know he was upset. And I think it kind of brings up a good conversation. Halifax Dave at Blue Sky Social says, should Beto have squared the last chance for Charlie? I'll go quickly first. I mean, you look at that on live, I think you might have a little bit of a thought, but you look at that on replay, it would have taken an absolute pinpoint pass the way the play kind of wrote. And just as you really illustrated out, James, this is like the 90th minute. Beto's been hustling all day. He does so well to get the ball in the first place, the 20-yard sprint, to then put himself in a really good position. You want to talk about first, second touch, excellent. It's just unfortunate on a day where, yeah, he's missed a few.
Yeah, and Charlie losing his head is hilarious, but I agree with you in that I don't think he has really a passing lane on the ground to get it to Charlie here at all, so he would have had to like chip 10 yards to get beyond. There's 3 defenders in the box, and Charlie's kind of on the backside of all of them, so I don't know why he loses his head. He just gets lost in the heat of the moment. This is what you get when you insert an Argentinian into the team.
And I'd like to mention the XG on that was 0.31. I mean, there's a little bit of an angle onto it, but Garrett Post at Parrot Ghost, 0.71 XGOT, that's post-shot XG on the last Beto chance. Exceptional save from Flecken. And it was. I mean, this is an unbelievable save. I mean, at first you strike it and you're like, oh man, must have hit it right at him. Absolutely not. I mean, Flecken has to cheat a little bit here and just makes a phenomenal save. I mean, this one, I just don't, TJ Bureau / Thomas said it best on the Discord.
Mother Flecken Beto. I mean, what
well
more
said.
can you say there?
The other thing too, Beto gets behind again, like a couple minutes later, and this time you can tell Brentford's like, no, we're not giving this guy another chance. And Collins just takes him completely out, by the way. But I'll tell you what, free kick in a good area, no, not a chance. I will say this though, nerve-wracking moment in the 5th extra minute. I mean, long throw again. I mean, Janelle, I mean, he whiffs on this ball. It was a big chance. I think it was unlucky, but and then how about on the clearance, like Jack Harrison's first touch for absolutely no reason? That was insane. I mean, the ball was way in the air. He just brings it down like it was absolutely nothing. Like, dude, you just ran like a couple miles for 95 minutes. And you can pull that off. What do you guys think? 1-1 deserved result, or do we deserve better? I mean, the second half numbers are pretty one-sided, at least in terms of XG and shots.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at this game, I think every Everton fan will say we should have won, right? But I also think this is kind of one of those situations, right? You think of Palace, right, where we got away with one. And you think of kind of some of our other results. Ultimately, I think it's a fair situation. We just, this is a game of chances, and we didn't take ours today. And, credit to Jake for doing a great job of taking his. But I think all in all, I think it's a pretty fair point. Of course, unfair in regards to, just wishing we got the extra 2, especially how the United game ended. But I will definitely happily take a point and continue this unbeaten run.
Yeah, I'll take the point on the road too. But I mean, 1 XG versus 0.37. I mean, they didn't have a shot at target in the second half. I mean, 9 shots for us, 3 shots on target, 2 big chances. The other problem is too, are they really missed? You know what I mean? Like when your post shot XG is so much. I mean, these are good attempts on goal. It's not like, even Charlie just missed wide. It wasn't like we were just lashing at the ball all over the place. I mean, you got to give Flecken credit. I will say it was really interesting, Sean. I mean, you've seen this team as well. I know James has. I know we tend to like some of the well-run teams. They're kind of enjoyable to watch. But Dansgaard still got on the ball. 71 touches. That was the most touches for Brentford. It's interesting, too, because his impact's normally more in the final third. He's very tricky, but I didn't necessarily feel like he had the greatest game based on how well he's been. But the quality's there, obviously. I think the most positive thing you can say is that we kept him somewhat out of the dangerous areas. I mean, almost all their chances are really off set pieces.
Well, I think also too, Ryan, like there was that kind of period in the match, that 10-minute period where he was everywhere, right? So I imagine a lot of those touches came at that point. But I also think, credit to us, I think we actually did a pretty decent job. I also think, too, why he had a lot of those touches is that midfield, Yarmolenko and Janelt. Like, if you saw Norgard and Jensen in there, I don't think he would have had to been as kind of pivotal to their attack. And once again, I think it was a situation, too, where Mbeumo kind of was shut down for the most part. I think they did a really good job of not letting him get on his preferred foot and take a crack on goal. Wissa was kind of, of course, he takes the goal well, but didn't really have much to play. So, credit to us. I think we actually did a pretty good job. One thing I will say, and it is really interesting, I know the announcer said, and then kind of looking at it, Brentford has not won at home since December 7th, but before that, 6 wins and a draw. Like, kind of insane when you think of the form dropping at home. They're starting to become a better road team. But yeah, just really interesting. Mark Flecken, of course, we can't speak enough of him. Excellent today. Even Moyes mentioned in the presser, man of the match. Quick conversation about Jack. How about him? I mean, he's really stepped up as of late.
Yeah, it just looks so much better coming off the left when he can use his left foot to put in crosses. And I know, especially in the first part of the second half, there were a number of crosses he kind of looped in, and Flecken was all over it, collecting everything. But you're seeing him definitely more comfortable, like cutting inside, and I think defenders have to respect him breaking to the touchline or cutting inside in those cases more so than when he's on the right. So I've been very happy, was very concerned when Njai went down. What would happen? Would our offensive output completely fall off a cliff? It really hasn't, and I think Harrison's played a big role in that. And again, the one thing you've never really questioned about Jack is his fitness and work rate, and you see it today where he's busting tail in stoppage time, still able to get up and down. He's probably gassed, but it doesn't really seem to impact his ability to his mobility, I should say.
Yeah, and I love the link between Charlie and Jack. I think we can't, say it enough, because it really feels like almost a new signing with Jack, with Charlie coming in, of course, but I just feel like we've seen a completely different Jack. Of course, when we talk about the Njai injury, like, this is kind of the silver lining to it, if there is one, right, to give some of these guys chances, right? So it's good to see Jack playing. It's good to see Charlie playing. And it's one of those things too, when we look at competition, right? When players start to get fit, this will only kind of improve, I think, the competitive balance in the squad. Ryan, who do you think, in terms of good performances today, kind of brings up to your mind?
Flecken. I mean, I'm sorry, but post-shot XG of 1.64, you only give up 1. No, I'd say one underrated performance, I think, was Mikalenko a little bit. I mean, there's not gaudy big numbers out there, but, he's playing against a very good player on their right wing for sure. And maybe they don't have some dangerous overlapping winger on that side, but, still it's a 1v1 battle, and he's isolated there and he's going to have to play. And for the most part, he kept him at bay, kept him away from the box. And look, he had the cross. You got to say, you got the assist, but it was a fantastic ball, and that matters, that's the thing. You look at the touches in the box. Mbeumo got 4 touches in the box, but what did he really do with it? He had one big chance, pretty much, didn't really come through with it, never hit a shot on target, and that was it, And I credit to Mykolenko on that side too. He just played a solid match and got up the pitch a couple times to make a difference. And look, at this point, you're just looking for a couple solid individual performances and grinding out results. And look, 1 point away, especially knowing that Ipswich lost, it's just one more thing for them to overcome. I think we're pretty safe.
Yeah, agree with Mykolenko. I was going to give him an honorable mention. Just think he had the assist, and an actually good assist in the way that, we know we don't love that stat on this podcast, but it's a fantastic cross to an open guy who puts it.
It wasn't his only good cross too. He served another ball that was pretty solid as well too, and just he was feeling it a little bit, which is good to see. I don't know where the future lies with Mykolenko. I don't think he's one that you point to and say, hey, solid, that's our starting left back forever. But he's putting in some good performances. And man, in the Premier League, there are tough matchups every week. And this one is Brian Mbeumo is a good player, like a really good player, and has had a fantastic year. Him and Vis have been unconscious in terms of goal scoring. So, the goal that we gave was not necessarily a typical one. It was off set pieces. So to kind of keep these guys off the scoreboard a bit from open play is no easy feat. And they really didn't generate many chances from open play at all. So kudos to the whole back line, but Mykolenko in particular.
Well, that segues nicely into my choice, and that's Tark today. He had 9 clearances, I think, 5 of which were headed clearances, 5 recoveries, was dribbled past only once. He was 3 for 3 in aerial duels.
And was booed throughout,
which I know he used to play for them. I don't know the context in which
I think
left.
He forced a move. I think that's the rumor, I guess.
Well, credit to Brentford fans' pettiness for holding on to that one for as long as they have. But I wanted to give a nod to another defender, because I think even though Brentford didn't create a lot, I thought that the activeness of our back line played a big role in that. And I think Tark, of the bunch, he also had a few long balls. I think it was 4 for 9 in long balls, so decent distribution, and had 9 passes into the final third. So there were a couple times he got very, very forward, and he looked so uncomfortable, into their final third. They were just they're backing off and marking other players, and he was carrying the ball forward. But Branthwaite's been getting a lot of praise lately. I thought Tark deserved it for his showing today.
Yeah, and I'm glad he pulled out of the challenge. It's nice to know he can pull out of something. So going into my man of the match, Jake O'Brien. It's pretty evident that I got into the dock first, right? So of course we'll start 1 goal, 3 tackles, 10 clearances. He led everyone on the pitch. 80% pass accuracy, 1 block shot, no fouls by Jake, and I think that's a credit to him. Of course, to your point, James, in regards to Miko facing Mbeumo, Kevin Schade's no easy matchup, so I think did a pretty good job there. But I will say this in terms of Jake today, had a few lackadaisical moments. I know we didn't really talk about that, so I'm glad he kind of got away with those. But yeah, it's just, I think overall had a very good day, and really, really happy for him that he got his first goal.
I think when these games kind of get back and forth and there's a little less structure, I think that kind of hurts a player like him, don't you think? He's just not used to maybe defending in space and being so vertical. You can't help but be a little bit lost a few times. And, I would expect us to handle long throws maybe a little bit better. That'd be about it. But, so I think you got to cut him a little slack, right?
Yeah, I think you do. And I think it's just worth reiterating. We talked about it at the top, and I meant to say it then. Despite Brentford's injuries, that is a phenomenally talented attacking unit, and we limited them to effectively nothing from open play. So I don't think it's any coincidence, even though we had a number of very good offensive chances created, that the defense is 2/3 of our good performances, because I think they did such a good job of limiting what Brentford were able to do. But with that, I think we go into some summary quotes. We have some good ones today. I thought this first one, a regular citation of the pod, Mike Greenall, at Greenall EFC. Everton, he said, "We're on our longest scoring run in the league, 7 games, since the end of 1920 and the start of 2021 under Ancelotti." So coincides with that stat from the top. Everton's longest unbeaten run since 2017, but now we're actually putting goals into the back of the net on a consistent basis, and you have to give Moyes credit for rejuvenating what looked like a completely dead on arrival attack for so much of this year.
Yeah, and then we have Mike at Wombat Combat, of course, your regular contributor to the Discord. Solid point on extremely tired legs, came back to equalize and keep the unbeaten streak going into the break. A few different bounces of the ball, and we may have won. Flecken with multiple goal-saving efforts. Most encouraging was Harrison having another strong performance on his preferred left side. Played quite a few good crosses in and provided some desperately needed close control around their box. Also, quick side note, when was the last time we've lost to Brentford, right? I mean, we've actually done pretty well against, Thomas Frank. Of course, we did the league double against them last season and 2 decent draws. So credit to us for kind of, playing good against a good side.
And I feel like Moyes doesn't have a good record against them too. Which is kind of strange. He doesn't. Moyes has some bogey teams. Like Moyes struggled when he was at Everton against the Big Six too. I mean, the league's different now. I get it. So I don't know if there's something to that, but you knew he would. Obviously Thomas Frank has some stuff dialed up differently, but look, it's up to us to change the story. And I think that's what we got a little bit here with Andrew Schroeder's comment here from Twitter. Moment of the match was the look on the face of David Moyes when Big Jake scored. It wasn't just excitement for a match-tying goal. It was genuine happiness and joy for a player he saw promise in who wasn't given the time of day under the previous manager. Up the Toffees. Again, changing stories, one player at a time. But yeah, I know we've said this several times before, but I'm going to say it again because I kind of like it. I still it's unbelievable to me that a guy who had so much success last year changing to the back three had an opportunity to change things up and declare that he had gotten as far as you could out of these players. Just as crazy to me that you wouldn't have changed that and tried to put him into the match. I mean, he's having an impact now on both sides of the pitch. I mean, not any 6'6" guy that's used to playing center back can just magically play like this. I mean, the kid's talented.
And I want to give him some credit as well, not just for the performances he's put in on the pitch, but
for changing the story.
Yeah, sort of. But his diplomacy and his now frequent media duties that he's been putting forth. He's been asked a lot about, hey, you're in the team now. You're performing really well. What's the deal? And he's been very diplomatic about the previous manager. Never refers to him by name, but the previous manager said, sometimes it's how football is. It's a game of opinions. Some people don't like players, others don't. I would be lambasting him saying, this guy didn't know anything. He didn't know what he was talking about. I'm glad that Moyes has seen what I think the recruitment team saw and what others saw of his potential and is finally seeing it utilized in this team because it was badly needed, and he's filled an unconventional role and done just such an incredible job.
James, I would be doing what he does. Why? Because I'm the consummate professional. I'm not out there on Twitter running my mouth. I'm not out there yapping on this podcast, right?
Well, people don't hear you off air.
I'm professional. We don't swear here. We keep it real. And we don't throw people under the bus, even though I just threw Dyche under the bus. Yeah, I'm sure his inner monologue saying some strong things, though. That's for sure. But it's just nice to see. It goes to show you when you give certain people a chance. It's just disappointing to me that you wouldn't give this guy a chance. It's not like he was playing in some farmers league. He was playing in France, though, at a fairly high level for a very good team and playing in that back three. And you could see he could carry the ball. He's really good on the ball for a guy his size. And again, the sky's the limit on him. I'll tell you what, it's a really interesting option if you play him at right back or right center back with JB with some attacking wing backs and play a higher line if you really want to get after it. I mean, and you don't lose anything on set pieces because those guys they're both massive and fast. And even Jake had to do some man v man stuff, and his feet are pretty darn good for his size. And I don't know, he's a talented guy. I hope he can build on those things and really get better at reading the match and develop some maturity in some of his positional things and challenges he has, because just the talent is unbelievable. Sleazy Toffee, Lindstrom Stan, of course, offering his usual comments from the Discord. But I think this sums the matchup pretty well.
Yeah, of course, good result against a good team. Brentford only generated one good shot and needed brilliance from Flecken to stay in it. Overall impressive display from an injured and fatigued Everton squad. I totally agree. I think one thing also too, Ryan, to your earlier point about kind of the back three, I mean, you look at what Palace are kind of doing. They're kind of a decent blueprint, right, in regards to they have an attacking right back in Munoz who's done an excellent job for them, and they're absolutely flying in terms of table form at the moment. So, once they're healthy, I mean, it kind of gives you, especially too, if we're going to be able to keep JB next summer, right, or next season, because, it's exciting, right? I think that's really the best thing to say.
Well, we know we are. Footy Insider said we are. That was the rumor. He's going to sign a new contract and we're good. He's the Footy Insider, so clearly he knows. It'll be very interesting. On the same token, people are saying that Ancelotti wants him at Real Madrid. I mean, all that stuff is just speculation and kind of silliness. But fundamentally, we'll see how it all plays out. Either way, there's a lot of stuff to build on. Upcoming schedule, gentlemen. Again, we're still in opportunity land, I suppose, to maybe pull out some results. I mean, at Wolves, we've got a nice break. There's no reason why we can't push for a result there. And West Ham at home. And then, yes, it gets much more difficult. We got to go at Anfield and play Arsenal. But, I mean, honestly, I think, like we said before in the pod last time, you get 3 points out of these next 3 in some capacity. I mean, I think we're pretty golden, and we're probably golden already.
Yeah, for me, in terms of this stretch, I think 5 points was the target, and starting with kind of United, just because I think, to your point, Ryan, you just get to essentially 36, right? You're in a good spot. But even right now, just looking at Ipswich losing, they were up a man and they couldn't beat United, right? And so it's just these teams continue to drop points. It's really kind of almost mystifying to me that they continue to drop points against very winnable competition.
Am I underestimating this team maybe, Sean? Because if you think about it, this has been 2 pretty good performances in a row. I mean, it's not like, United basically had all their breaks on set pieces thanks to, we thought, very bad refereing. I mean, I think today no one would have walked away from this match today and thought Everton maybe wasn't hard done. If there was any team that deserved to win this match, it surely wasn't Brentford. Maybe I'm not giving us enough credit. I mean, you thought 5 points over the next 3. I thought 3 would be great, but maybe you're right.
4, yeah. But also too, I think I kind of wanted to open up the conversation. Even looking at April, and especially looking at some of these teams, right? I think Ryan, you mentioned it a lot, and I agree with you. There's no world beaters right now in the Premier League. I look at Chelsea, right, playing at them. I'm not scared of a Chelsea right now. And I'm not saying that they could absolutely torch us, right? And I could be eating my words. Same with Arsenal. And same with kind of even at Liverpool, I think will be an absolutely tough game. But going into December, right, we were absolutely, frightened. And the only loss we had was against Forest, and that was under Deitch, right? So I kind of, and also keep in mind, we're going to get bodies back, right? So it'll be interesting.
Fair, but I mean, come on, man. I mean, look at April. Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, City, Chelsea. Are those the top 5 teams in the league right now? Yes,
literally the top 5. It's literally the top 5.
But that being said, playing any of them in some of the last matches ever at Goodison, Arsenal's not scoring a lot of goals right now. City looks better with some of their transfer moves, but their back line is supremely flawed. Forest is, it's got to suffer eventually the wrath of the XG gods, right? Chelsea worries me a little bit because I feel like they're starting to kind of roll, but they have a lot of immaturity. They don't have a legitimate striker right now. So, yeah, but look, let's be honest here. I'd like to have everything wrapped up by the end of March. That would be the more ideal situation, and it's possible that it could be, really. With Ipswich and Leicester going to have 2 more matches, I think before our last 2 by middle March, it could be done.
Yeah. To your point, I think, and I agree with all of that. And it, of course, we're going to kind of move on. Of course, as we talked about last preview, and I think we nailed it pretty well, guys, in regards to looking at Brentford last pod. This is a team that I love to hate watch. So I put a pretty extensive preview for Wolves.
Yeah, you comment on this team way too. Is this the Victor Pereira? Is that why you just want to watch his antics on the sideline?
No, I guess I have a crush on Matheus Cunha. Maybe that's what it is. But last year, just kind of quick stats. 17th in X points last year, 16th in X points this year. So, of course, kind of really struggling at the bottom. Absolutely abysmal under Gary O'Neill defensively, as we saw at Goodison. Craig Dawson, thank you. We are truly appreciative of you. They have been a lot better, though, under Vitor Pereira, so I am eating my words a little bit because I really consider him a used car salesman, but he still, of course, has a big job to do. I will say this, as we talk about on the Discord and just kind of broader conversation in January, they were one of the only teams outside of Ipswich to really spend. And it's interesting when you kind of peel back the onion on what they spent on. Of course, it makes complete sense that they bought a center back, Emmanuel Agbadou from Reims. So one thing to note is he's been excellent, by the way. I've kind of watched him. They've missed him a lot yesterday against Fulham. He has a hamstring injury. Somehow, some way, I'm sure he's going to be healthy for our game. That's just how it goes. But he's 28. Right. So you think of paying $20 million for a guy that's 28. He's excellent. I think he's going to do a good job for them. But it kind of goes to, what we talk about in terms of our transfer business. Marshall Manetzi, a midfielder from Reims as well. He's 27. Right. So it's just the age guy on these guys that they're buying. And then they bought another center back who they really haven't played, Nasser Giga, from Red Star Belgrade for $12 million. He's 22, so he's kind of one for the future. He hasn't seen much of the pitch. Wolves have scored 37 goals. They're outperforming their XG by 5.78, so that kind of gives you an idea. But I think as we talked about it before, Matheus Cunha, what a player. He's done absolutely insane to carry them all season. And I think 13 goals, 4 assists. He's outperforming his individual XG by 6.3, and as kind of we talked about before the pod, it's pretty normal for him to do that.
I mean, Sean, he's like 5th in the league in open play goal contributions and 5th in maybe open play goals, like in the whole league on a team that's not generating that much attack. I mean, it's time to maybe start talking about this guy as like a world-class player, legitimately.
Yeah, and of course he signed a contract extension, but part of the reason it took so long is for him to insert that beautiful release clause, which is at $62.5 million, and I guarantee one of Arsenal, City, or somebody in world football is going to take advantage of that this summer. Andre Trindade is another guy that they bought, kind of a Jorge Mendes link that they actually benefited from. Really solid midfielder. It is wild to me that Wolves of all teams have kind of 3 players that are featuring Brazil, with between him, João Gomez, and Cunha. But he's somebody to watch for when you kind of look at our matchup going forward. In terms of their injury front, Strand Larsen, they've been playing Manetzi at striker, given that Strand Larsen's been out. Inside joke in the Discord, Hwang is not okay right now, but he should be okay for the game. And then, of course, I'm really hoping Emmanuel Agbadou is out, because if he is, that means Santi Bueno is in, and I would tell you that Beto is going to have a field day with that guy.
Well, I think he's going to have a field day with anyone they put in, really. I don't think this is a good matchup for them dealing with him. Sometimes playing it away at Molineux can be difficult. So in theory, maybe the referees will struggle with that. But, Sean, we can get a result here out of this one, can't we?
Absolutely. I think for us, my biggest fear is Cunha. It's just because he is just somebody that can take over a game. I even think at the fixture at Goodison, I know we won 4-0, but they had plenty of good, decent chances. Of course, that was kind of under different circumstances. But I actually think of it as a pretty decently open game. But I also think too, it's a game we should have plenty of opportunities, and I really want us to win because I really want to stick it to Vitor. So.
Yeah, I mean, Wolves are really the other team making this even a remotely interesting relegation battle. So obviously kind of pressure's ramping up on them. I mean, they have a talented team. You mentioned Strand Larsen. I mean, that could be a little tricky. I know Ait Nori was a player I always kind of liked, but he seems to not be having the best year. He's having an okay year, but it'll be an interesting one. And also really on the Everton front to see which players are able to get fit and get enough training time to be included back in the squad. I imagine we'll see a much deeper bench for Everton on the other side of this break. So that can only mean good things, ramping up, getting guys healthy into the most difficult part of our schedule. So we will look forward to that. We do have a bit of a break. We may be with you on the interim with some additional content, because there's been some announcements on the executive front for Everton and some other news. So it might be interesting to put out an episode sometime next week about that. But otherwise, any final thoughts, gentlemen, before we wrap this episode?
Just really thankful for this run we're on. I mean, it's been really exciting. As we talk about kind of the new era with the Blue Frontier, our form has been pretty sparkling, right? All things considered. So credit to Moyes. I don't think we give him enough credit. He's done a really good job of really kind of putting players into spots, but also just I think you're seeing some of the kind of tactic tweaks, and he's doing this with a very shorthanded squad. So all the credit also has to go to the players, right? With how many injuries we have and how much we're asking of them, for them to kind of really be on the run they're on. Just so well done. So yeah.
Completely agree. And there was a comment on the broadcast today about a fresh voice making a difference, and kind of, some people were decrying that as a silly thing, but
They just want to change the story.
they just want to change the story. But I do think, Moyes has come in, and we know he's done some things very differently to Sean Dyche, and clearly that's made a world of difference. And it's made Everton a joy, much more of a joy to watch and a joy to cover on this podcast over the last couple months. So for that, I'm extremely thankful.
I'm just glad that we finally have standards. We've always had standards here on Blue Frontier. We set them up front. We've adhered to them. I can't say the same about the former manager, so I'm glad that we have aspirations beyond Brentford because of standards.
NSNO standards. And with that, we'll probably wrap this episode. No better place to do it. Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, again, please just leave us a rating and review on your platform of choice. We really appreciate that and helps us out a lot. Follow us on socials, join our Discord, share the episodes, all that good stuff. Till next time, up the Toffees.